So just 2 years removed from their first NBA championship in team history, the Denver Nuggets are going all in with having one of their most active off seasons in the last decade or so. But the question is, what moves did they make? What players did they acquire? How did they do it? And did this truly turn the Denver Nuggets into true playoff, not even that, true championship contenders? That is what the purpose of today's episode is to find out. But before we get into it, real quick, I want to please encourage you guys to go down below, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment, and share it to friends, as well as always, following us on all social medias. All of those ads are down below in the description. We're on all those social medias. You will get to see my latest reaction to all the breaking news within the NBA and the NFL. We have the NBA offseason in full swing as of right now. We have NFL training camp coming up, and in just about a month to 2 months' time, we will have the NFL regular season kicking off. So you do not want to miss it, and you do not want to miss for whenever the podcast uploads an episode. So please go down below and follow all those social medias, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. And without further ado, guys, let's hop into this and let's break this down step by step, starting with the Denver Nuggets' first move, and that is the Michael Porter Jr. trade to the Brooklyn Nets. So yesterday, in a surprise move, Michael Porter Jr. is traded to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson and a 2032 first-round pick. And why I say this was a surprise, it wasn't a surprise technically that Michael Porter Jr. was on the trade block. We knew this for the past couple of months. There had been some disgruntlement in terms of his motivation towards the team. There were a lot of people that did not like his defensive efficiency, being able to move his feet within the perimeter, and his offensive efficiency had laid off a little bit, which was his most important part to his game, his ability to shoot the basketball. There had also been, plenty of, negative comments toward him throughout social media about his inability to swing and being able to pass the ball and just chucking up bad shots. So the availability of him was not the issue. The surprise about it was the fact that the Denver Nuggets actually got a deal done, a deal on a guy who has had an extended injury history before he got even into the NBA, with his back injury just last year within the playoffs, having a big-time shoulder injury that he was able to play through but did affect him throughout. His inability to play defense, his lack of motivation and whatnot. It was a really big-time surprise that Denver was able to get a deal done, not to mention the deal that they got done with Brooklyn. I think that I'm in the right here by saying that Cam Johnson is 100% the better player within this deal. He's younger, he's cheaper, he plays better defense, and he is almost as good of a shooter as Michael Porter Jr. has. Maybe not, as a big time knockdown shooter, but has grown his efficiency throughout his time in the league. He has really great versatility and the ability to play the small forward position and the power forward position. And this is such a big deal because, again, that has been one of the big things that Denver has been lacking. They have unfortunately have had to submit to putting Aaron Gordon on the best opposing player on the opposite team, no matter what position they play. Point guard, small forward, center, whatever you want to name it, Aaron Gordon was on there. And when they couldn't put Aaron Gordon on that type of player, like, for example, in playing the Oklahoma City Thunder in the conference semifinals this previous year, Gordon had to sufficiently play a lot of time opposite from Jalen Williams. They had to submit to putting Christian Braun on a lot of the opposing side, which isn't a bad defender whatsoever. Christian Braun, a little bit feisty, has some aggression, is able to poke the ball out, and had some good moments against SGA in those conference semifinals on the defensive end, but is a little bit smaller, right? And does like to play a more faster paced type of basketball where he likes to get out and can't just stand next to an opposing defender, whatnot, for the entire game. And so because of that, they also had to feed into game plans of potentially doubling SGA, which left them more vulnerable on the backside, especially with a defensive weakness at the center position in Nikola Jokic, who doesn't move too well. So they go out and they get Cam Johnson, who does have that type of ability to go out and guard the best opposing player on the offensive end for the opposing team. A guy who is not going to drop you off offensively whatsoever, is younger, is cheaper. He brought them from above the first apron marker to below the luxury tax threshold, which allowed them to have a lot of the moves that we're going to be talking about in just a couple minutes to happen. That type of cap space buffer that they got with Cam Johnson allowed them to make more of their contending moves. And if worse comes to worse, Cam Johnson's on a 2-year deal. You have him for 2 years. It seems like Denver is really going into with this 2-year stretch that they have with this squad. You get a 2-year deal, plug him in there. If he doesn't work out, you get rid of him, you re-sign him, you trade him. You could do whatever you want with that. And this is most importantly not just because of the matchup to matchup, but because defense was Denver's biggest weakness. They were the 21st defensive rating in the NBA this year. It was clear that they have an issue. They've had an issue over the past couple of years of Nikola Jokic playing drop coverage and being put in the pick and roll against quicker guards and being drove downhill to the basket. They've had issues with that in the past. And so now you get to extend your length, extend your defensive capabilities, and not to mention you also got a 2032 first-round pick from the Brooklyn Nets who, we'll see. That's in 6-7 years' time. The player that, they will get in this deal with that 2032 pick is in 7th, 8th grade right now, is like 12 years old. So we don't know what that can be. And we also don't know who the Nets are going to be within 6 years. The Nets haven't really been the most consistent winning franchise throughout their history whatsoever. They've had some terrible moves in the past. Hey, I've even commented in their past draft with their historic 5 first-round picks saying that they didn't do the great job best to fit in terms of their picks with drafting 3 European point guards. So there's definitely something that we don't really know that the Nets potentially know about the players that they drafted. Who knows where they're going to be in 6 years? They could be an NBA championship team. They could still be in the same position that they are right now. So it's a boomer bust type pick. It has the potential to be, maybe number 1 overall. It also has the potential to be the last pick in the first round. We don't know, but betting it on the Brooklyn Nets and the position that they've been over the past couple of years, my best bet is that could potentially be a lottery pick within 6 years. So I like this trade for Denver. You get space off your cap, you add to your length defensive capability, and you don't lay off of the offensive efficiency. You get a draft asset. What more else can you really ask for? Which moves us on. That cap space moves us on to our second deal, which was the Denver Nuggets trading for Jonas Valanciunas from the Sacramento Kings for Dario Saric. This again was another very big time surprise trade for me. I felt that following the Michael Porter Jr. trade that Denver was going to go out and acquire more assets, right? Heck, they signed Bruce Brown not even a half an hour following Michael Porter Jr.'s trade, which we'll get to in just a second. They ended up getting that compensation, but I didn't know that they were going to reenact in the trade, and I didn't know that there were reenactments for a trade for a backup center. You want to talk about defense being the biggest weakness that the Denver Nuggets have had over the past couple of years and in last year's playoff run. Backup center has been the second biggest weakness that has, trailed Denver for years now. I go back to that 2019, 2020, 2021 teams that Denver had where they went to the conference finals against the Los Angeles Lakers, where they, dueled with the Phoenix Suns in the conference semifinals and whatnot. In my opinion, those teams were potentially better than the Denver Nuggets championship team. Now, there are some, trade-offs that you can have with that. Aaron Gordon is definitely a much more supplementable athletic power forward than is a Paul Millsap and whatnot. But one of the good things that made those Denver teams so great within the bubble and prior to that was their depth, and more so over their ability to be able to sub out Nikola Jokic whenever they wanted. Miles Plumlee was a big time supporter, a contributor to those teams because you could sub Jokic out, and here came Miles Plumlee, who by no means was on the level of Mason Plumlee. I'm sorry, it's Mason Plumlee. I believe it's Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee would come on, and he could just be a rotational role player center that played solid defense, didn't make a lot of mistakes, and could run in the pick and roll with their guards. And Jonas Valanciunas, don't get me wrong, is 100% that as well. The dude does solid on the pick and roll, rolling to the basket. He's a big-time rim protector. Sure, there are a little bit of athleticism problems within him, and he is a little bit older, but experienced vets is what you need with this group right now when you're trying to contend for a championship. And not to mention that you basically gave up, once again, nothing. You give up Dario Saric, who barely had any playing time for the Denver Nuggets in this previous year that he signed for them. Kings, they want to supplement. They want to obviously get the salary off their books and just get Jonas Valanciunas and his older veteran player off of their books, which is, completely understandable. But you gave up probably the least amount of value that you could have. And not only that, this now allows you to put Jonas Valanciunas at that center position. It allows you to slide Deron Holmes, who was your rookie from last year, who unfortunately got hurt in the summer league, to his more natural power forward position, where he sits at about between 6'8" and 6'10", has solid athleticism and plays a stretch four. And then it allows you to play Peyton Watson at his natural small forward position, which I think is a much better fit for him because he is a lot taller, but a lot more lengthier. He is a lot more skinny, and he cannot stand up to a lot of these bigger box power forwards like the Draymond Greens and whatnot of the world in that box at the power forward position because he's just simply not strong enough. So it shifts everyone over into the natural position where I think that they will play better. It once again improves your defense. You're taking a little bit of a cat fit, but when you're contending, that's what you need. And it allows you to sub off Nikola Jokic whenever you want, which really is the big deal here because we've seen last year and especially in the year before that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic playing 48 minutes a game is just not realistic, at least not at this point, especially with Jamal Murray having injuries. This just gives you more depth. It allows you to have a backup center position. Aaron Gordon now does not have to play the backup center position and play an extended amount of time. It gives you insurance in case of injury, which Denver had a lot of in this previous playoff series against the Oklahoma City Thunder between Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. Nice move for the Denver Nuggets, and they supplemented that depth even more with the signings of Tim Hardaway and Bruce Brown. So obviously I mentioned the Bruce Brown signing, which happened yesterday, not even 30 minutes after the Michael Porter Jr. trade. But now, just 30 minutes before I even started recording this episode, I get word that the Denver Nuggets have signed Tim Hardaway Jr., another big-time veteran signing for the Denver Nuggets. And this gives them a full 10-man rotation. Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic. That's your starting five, right? Solid. Then on the backups, you have Bruce Brown, Julian Strawther, who had a breakout game, and I believe it was like Game 5 or Game 6 against the Oklahoma City Thunder in last year's conference semifinals. You have Peyton Watson, Deron Holmes, you have Jonas Valanciunas, and now you have Tim Hardaway Jr., who's going to supplement playing a veteran role. Not only that, he's going to be able to be a veteran that is going to be able to help develop a younger guy like Julian Strawther, who is going to need that little bit of leadership and addition to the defensive side of the ball, which is what Tim Hardaway Jr. does best. This is a really, really good solid signing for Denver as well. Again, more insurance in case of injury, more insurance if players aren't playing well in the regular season. Jamal Murray definitely hasn't been at his best in the regular season at times, so it just gives you more offensive capabilities within there. And then Bruce Brown signed at the backup point guard position. I love this. Not only is it at a cheaper deal, but I fully believe that Denver should have never let him go after that NBA championship run in 2023. I understand that they didn't really have really much of a choice, really, because he wanted so much money, but he was such a big-time contributor to that bench depth in that 2023 run. The dude is an offensive monster. He is crafty. He's able to get to the basket whenever he wants. And not saying that he is going to be that same player, 2-3 years later, but if he can be even half of that, right, if he can come off the bench and average 10, 12 points per game, you know how much easier that is going to make it for Denver, how much more unpredictable they're going to be, how much, that second bench unit going up against teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, right, going up against teams like the Dallas Mavericks and whatnot that just have this big time amount of depth, the San Antonio Spurs, these teams that have 8, 9, 10, 11 man type rosters, going up against those teams, they are going to be much more well suited. And they, despite the Thunder having a long playoff run and obviously getting a lot of big time experience through winning a championship, and they definitely have that championship pedigree, the Nuggets have even more of that now as well. They have even more experience. They have a guy that has ran within their system, worked within their system, and has been successful within their system. And they did it with having, minimal deals and not a lot guaranteed to a lot of these contracts that they're signing with Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. I like these moves for Denver. Gives you insurance, gives you depth, gives you more offense, and again, gets you guys that were familiar with Michael Malone / now David Adelman's system, and this really now is on David Adelman to make this whole thing work. Or not, this Denver team is going to implode within a year or two, and I'd really, really, really hate to see that. The biggest question now is how far can this Denver team go? And like I just mentioned, this is all down to David Adelman. Can the technically now second-year head coach make things happen within Denver? Because in my opinion, they have the talent. They could go up against the Lakers. They could go up even against a team like the Rockets, who now traded for Kevin Durant. They were one game away from defeating the Oklahoma City Thunder, who was the number one seed and ended up going for an NBA championship, and who have relatively the same exact squad. And now Denver's more talented. They can go up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They can go up against the Dallas Mavericks with Cooper Flag. In my opinion, the Denver Nuggets can face off against any team within the NBA right now, and they will be able to compete. So it's really down to Adelman, his inexperience. Can he heighten that and be able to rise to the occasion to the head coach, especially with a team that is not not going to rely on surviving in games anymore? Is going to be right there, going to be competitive within 2 3-point games. Can he get things going within crunch time and win those big time games? I'm hoping he can, because as a Denver Nuggets fan, this is really our last chance, our last stretch. We have so much talent on this team, and I would hate to see, especially a generational type talent like Nikola Jokic, go to waste, and a guy that is almost never going to come again to a small market team in Denver and be as good to us as he has been. And that is really all that I have for you guys today. So let me know down below in the comments what you think. What do you think about the NBA free agency so far? What do you think about Denver's NBA free agency so far? Has it been some wins? Has it been some losses? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? How far can this Denver Nuggets team go? Let me know about all of that down below in the comments, as well as subscribing, leaving a like, and sharing with your friends. Turning on post notifications, and of course following all of the social medias. All of the ads are down below in the description so that you can never miss whenever the podcast uploads an episode. And without further ado, we're going to go continue to keep covering this wild NBA free agency. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and a safe 4th of July. I will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy, and peace.